Welcome back to this week's technical. These technicals are short but in-depth focuses on different topics related to farm animal health. If you like this one, by all means go and have a look at some more. If you like what you see, don't be afraid to hit subscribe, ring the little bell next to it, like the video, and leave me a comment. Let's get into this topic. And we are back this week on our little mini-series on the different classes of wormers. The first video we did was, of course, the group 1s, also called the whites, also called the benzimidazoles. Today, we are talking about group 2s, or the yellows. Now, historically, there would have been a number of different products within this group. Now, at least in the UK, there is one active ingredient. So this is a group of 1, and that 1 is a compound called Levamisole. Hence, when you see branded products with something like Lev or Lever in the name, often there is a Levamisole component to it. So Levamisole is effectively the last man standing of these group 2s or yellows. Group 2 wormers are the second oldest group of wormers we've had in the UK. They were introduced to the UK in around about the 1970s, so about 10 years after the group 1s or whites. And it's worth noting at this point that just like the other classes of wormers, you can find them in combination products with different fluticide. The group 2 mechanism of action, how it actually kills the worms, is different to the group 1s. We said the group 1s effectively halted the metabolism and ended up starving worms. Group 2s instead paralyze the worm, allowing the host animal to pass it in the dung. In terms of its spectrum of action, remember that's the range of different parasites this will kill. Levamisole, assuming there's no resistance, is pretty much effective against all the major gut roundworms of sheep and cattle. It's also effective against lungworm. Unlike other groups, group 2 wormers are not licensed for tapeworm, not licensed for any kind of liver fluke, and importantly, they are not licensed for those hypobiotic larvae. Remember, those are the larvae that are in an arrested stage of development, almost a kind of dormancy within the animal during the colder months. Group 2s will not be effective against those hypobiotic larvae, unlike group 1s, group 3s, and so on. Another difference of group 2s is that they are not ovicidal. That means they do not kill worm eggs, unlike other groups. Another feature of this group is that it has a relatively narrow safety index. What is a safety index? Safety index is the range of dose above which the drug is effective, i.e. it actually works, and below which it isn't toxic. You don't get adverse side effects. To illustrate this, you might have two drugs, say drug A and drug B. Drug A has a broad safety index, meaning you have to really go for overdosing in order to cause adverse effect. Drug B has a narrower safety index. That means you have to be more careful because you end up reaching the toxic dose much more quickly. Compared to other wormers, group 2s, the yellows, have a narrower safety index. What does this mean practically? It means we need to be careful when dosing animals. We need to get an accurate idea of their weight and we need to dose them according to that weight. Now that's a little bit different to some of the generic advice. Often we say dose for the heaviest. That might not always be appropriate with group 2 wormers. Say you have a group of fat lambs that you are dosing. Some might be 40 plus kilos, some might be 20 kilos. If we dose all of those lambs for 40 kilos, we're going to effectively be giving the 20 kilo lambs a double dose. For some drugs, that wouldn't matter. They're very safe. For something like a group 2 wormer, we're going to run into issues. The issues you do see are typically neurological. That means they're related to the nervous system, the brain, the spine, and all the nerves throughout the body. So signs of Levamisole toxicity include muscle tremors, head shaking, and hypersalivation. Resistance to Levamisole, the group 2 wormers, is pretty common. Where we go looking for it, it's typically not as common, not as prevalent as for the white wormers, the group 1s. That's not much of a saving grace because resistance to that group is so common. There is a bit of a range. It's normally somewhere between 10 to 70%. The key thing is, although it's not as common as for white wormers, it's still very common. As ever, if you're unsure about the status of your own farm, I highly recommend you do a post-drench check for all the 3 major groups of wormers. Organise that with your vet, how you're going to drench, what you're going to drench with, the timings of collecting samples, and so on. I'd really recommend getting a baseline. Finally, one more quirk that's relevant to sheep and specifically dipping sheep. Now, in the UK, at the time of making this video, there is one product licensed for dipping sheep. That is Gold Fleece, currently made by Bimeda. If you look at the data sheet, it states an interval of at least 14 days should elapse between dipping and dosing with any drench, etc., containing Levamisole or an OP compound. So if you're organising dipping, whether that's routine or a treatment for something like sheep scab, bear this restriction on yellow wormers in mind. That's it for this one. Again, I hope a short, snappy one. If you enjoyed that, don't forget to click subscribe, ring the little bell next to it for updates on new videos, give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment with any feedback. The next of these videos will be on the group 3s or the clears. Stay tuned for that one. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed that and see you next time.